So we already talked about virtual bundles, and I don't want to hash that more, but I just want to remind you that it really does benefit you on search result pages. If a good example is, I was looking for a Thunderbolt 4 dock, and I searched for Anchor Thunderbolt 4 dock, and they have a whole bunch of different varieties that show up in search result pages because they have so many virtual bundles. There are at least 6 different variations of it, and it really helped them consume search results that would have been more geared towards their competitors once the most relevant results, which is them, their brand, and their product, were filled in. Then a lot of the other products are going to be competitive, and it's one, I think, very successful strategy, especially when it's more generic, non-branded terms. Talking about variation changes, one of you guys want to talk about some suggestions on variations?
I'll jump in, and I had a client several years ago that going into November, Black Friday, Cyber Monday timeframe, we had a difficult time getting products on the first page of the search result page because of the competitiveness of the space. But one of the things that we did was we decided to take the product that had 12 different, it was the same product, just 12 different colors, no size variation, just the color. And we broke the variation and then created campaigns specifically based around the performance that we saw in the campaign that covered the advertising campaign that covered the variation. So we could kind of get very strategic and surgical with our keywords. But by doing that, about 14 to 20 days before Black Friday, we were able to push rank up on a lot of really important keywords for those products individually, which it's a search result page real estate situation, and it really made for a fantastic seasonal time frame.
I would say like 90% of the time, I'm a proponent to do mergers and create more products under one variation. But there are those instances where you may take an invert approach to that and say, I'm actually going to break it apart, like Wes just mentioned, for a strategic advantage. In that case, marketing and search page placement. But hopefully you've already weighed those options well in advance. But now is a time, if you haven't done something, it may not be too late. Of course, the same strategy is not going to apply to all of your products. It has to be very, very specific. Like, for example, you have 2 products combined together. You could still hypothetically test that now and break it apart, see the impact, and then put it back together if it doesn't present the results, or vice versa if they're 2 separate and you can combine them and test the results. I would have rather done this earlier on in the season, but if you feel like it could have a significant impact, it may be worth the risk to test it at this late stage.
I think this is a really risky one, like you're saying, Steve, if you haven't tested, because the thing that's coming to mind listening to this is, okay, I do that, but all along I've had the whole variation, let's say, in one campaign, and it's worked that way because people may have clicked through one thing but bought the other and bought up and all that stuff. And now I've busted it apart and I've got this, you'd have to redo all your advertising for that variation. Just seems like it could be very risky this time of year.
Yeah, I would say it's one of those examples I almost removed out of our deck when we were sharing this with people, because it would have to be a situation where the catalog is in poor shape. For example, we recently started working with a client in the apparel space, and the catalog was a real mess. Products all broken apart, and the right types of products weren't merged into the right variations and so forth. If you know that the catalog is not easily found, I would consider that a basic, right? You have to have the product organized in a way that makes sense.
Mhm.
So if you need to do those things, do them before it's too late. If you don't need to do them, I'd advise probably not testing anything at this stage just for the sake of testing it, unless you know that it's a more critical element.
I
Or
had a
test it with a really, a variation that is just not important to your sales and test it that way. And if it works, then roll it out quickly.
That's right. That's another option. Mhm.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you also have to look to a degree of the category that you're in and the competitiveness with it as it relates specifically to your product. And what I mean by that, I have a client who is in a very, very competitive space where hundreds of different SKUs on it. However, they are in a very niche part of it. So if a consumer searched on the broader category, of what this product is, the chances of coming up would be very slim, and we know that, and we're actually okay with it because we are targeting a very niche customer. So, but in this case, what we did is we actually never had the variations to begin with purposely, because we knew that if the customer was searching under what this niche is, that we had the opportunity to now to own the search results page at that point. In our case, it was a cent difference between, it was the main item, but it had all different kinds of cents to it there. And we had 15 different cents. So in general, we literally owned that search results page because we only had about 5, 6, 7 different competitors. And I'm bringing this up as far as if you find that you're in this situation, then that might be something to consider, doing. Steve, you brought up what Anchor did as far as the virtual bundles, which sort of accomplishes the same thing about owning that search results page.
Yeah,
and this strategy works too if you can fall into this niche kind of thing like I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, I think 90% of the time I'm a fan of combining products, that 10% where there's this very unique situation that makes sense to break them apart.
Exactly.
For one of multiple reasons: search page, real estate, or advertising, where you can actually drive ads separately to the specific colors and or size or sense or whatever. Maybe those are bad examples, but this specific variant to a better degree when separated.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of stuff that we help our clients with all the time. Is just looking at the most advanced things you can do, and a lot of what we're trying to talk through today is not the basics. It's the, hey, have you thought about this? Have you done this? We're hoping that you pick up on 1 or 2 things you haven't implemented. You implement it, and it makes a big difference for your holiday sales performance. I like to think of all of the things that you can do on Amazon as being 5% here, 5% there. It's what levers do you have to pull, when do you pull them, and why? And if you pull a bunch of levers and they each represent 5%, that's what sets apart a really good seller from an average seller that is not doing all of these things. For example, we're going to talk about is storefront pages. This is something that you can make it more holiday themed. I'm not a big fan of putting a lot of work into this, but if it's something that you have the resources to make some improvements in your storefront to make it more holiday themed, by all means do it. Again, it speaks to freshness and a relevancy when a customer's looking for something giftable. Anything to add on this, guys?
I mean, the one thing that comes to mind, and I'm not negating this or disagreeing, but go and look at go into the analytics or insights view for the storefront. Look at the 30-day sales and look at your 30-day sales in total. And if that storefront sales is much shy of 5% of the total, I would probably be putting my efforts elsewhere, for the next 30 days. It's just not going to move the needle.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. This is one of those things where if you've got everything else buttoned up, maybe it's something that can move the needle. Merchandising, the more giftable items on your page as well. Those are all things you can do. But again, they're going to move the needle slightly on a small segment of your business, which is coming through the storefront. But again, it's one of those things where if you haven't done it and you've got the ability to do it, it's going to hopefully inch out additional performance for you.